have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, I'm unmuted now. And I'll start again because I just told you the winning lottery numbers. Oh, well. Welcome to our 8th B'nai Yeshurun Zoom cooking class. Tonight we feature Leah Eisenberg and her daughter Shira, and they're going to be cooking baked ziti, baked green bean fries, and oatmeal raisin cookies. First, as always, I'd like to thank our Zoom master and creative director, Chad Cohn, for his excellent work in coordinating this cooking class as always. Next week, we have the honor to present the accomplished baker, Rachel Schwartz, who will be baking with yeast. She will create pizza, a delicious babka, and the ever popular kifli. When I asked her what is kifli, she sent me a picture, but I still don't know how it tastes. But if Rachel makes it, I'm sure it's gonna be good. Remember to put your Zoom in speaker view for the presentation, and any questions that you may have for the dynamic duo tonight, enter those into the chat. I've known Leah and Shira both since they've been born, which of course was not at the same time. I used to drive Leah to Sunday school and tell her stories, and made up stories about a dude named Lebocat, which is of course Taco Bell spelled backwards. And I think this somehow was a determining factor in her life that inspired her to succeed as a mother and a cook. Some kids spend their idle hours playing video games and the like, but not Shira. She always seems to be around the kitchen, whether helping out at the synagogue or making multiple creations at home. Shira has a natural propensity and proficiency for working with food. So without further ado, I give you the Judy Garland and Liza Minnelli of the kitchen, Leah and Shira. Take it away.
Thanks, Marie. Oh, you're on this too. All right, so thanks guys for joining us tonight. We're making some of our favorites. We're gonna start with dessert because you should always start with dessert. Shira is gonna start us off with her oatmeal raisin cookies. And then we're gonna move into one of our favorite weeknight classic menus, or meals. It's our baked ziti. I love it because you could make 2 at a time. One always goes in the freezer. It's a big hit with my kids. And then we're gonna do green beans just a little differently, kind of spice things up a little and do my take on green bean French fries. But first we're gonna start with dessert. All right, Shira, it's all yours.
Okay. Okay. Where's the recipe? Where's the recipe?
So this recipe comes from Grandma Faith, and before that it was Grandma Anita's, her mother, and before that it was Grandma Anita's best friend Zizi. So this is her recipe. My mom and Zizi's daughter still talk regularly and joke about how they're still making their grandmother's recipes. And so we've taken this classic and we've changed it up sometimes. Sometimes we've made the original. Shira's gonna make the original recipe.
Yeah. Okay. First, to start off, 1 cup of flour. I already have everything already measured out in bowls. 1/4 teaspoon baking soda. I don't like to measure my salt, but just a pinch of salt. Just brings out the flavor. And then 1 teaspoon cinnamon. You can do more. I like to do a little more because I like more cinnamon in my cookies. And then you're going to set it off to the side. Then another bowl. 3/4 cup shortening. I use Crisco. You can use any other brand. You can also use butter, but or margarine. But I like to use shortening so it can be parve. And then 1 1/3 cup brown sugar. This makes them more chewy and better. You can use an electric mixer for this, a hand mixer. I just use a fork. It's easier, less mess. And then you just want to mix it all together with the eggs. So until it's one mixture, I guess. Because they're good cookies. I don't know.
What would you say is your favorite kind of cookie?
Favorite cookie? I like chocolate chip cookies better. But most people say oatmeal raisin cookies are like really gross and just like the worst cookie. But those are store-bought cookies. Store-bought cookies are gross. But these oatmeal raisin cookies are really, really good. And it'll change your mind about how you feel about oatmeal raisin cookies. Okay, so once that's all mixed together, you're going to add 2 eggs. And you want to check them, make sure there's no red in them for blood. About a teaspoon of vanilla. So just
You also don't measure the vanilla?
I don't measure vanilla. I don't know. And then mix it all together so it becomes like not so much a liquid, but I don't know.
What would you say the consistency is like?
Like a paste, kind of. Not really, but like thicker liquid.
Play-doh-y?
No, not Play-Doh. That's gross. Say Play-Doh. Maybe cook. So it looks like that.
You're doing great.
I'm not very great. Okay.
Do you ever change it up? Like if you were going to change up the recipe, how would you? Do you ever do something other than just raisins?
You can do craisins, dried cranberries. I mean, that'll work too because it's basically a raisin, but just, I don't know.
So you want something soft and chewy in it too?
Yeah. So just mix it together. And then I don't really know which one I do first, but you can either put the liquid in first with this, or you can add the oats first. But this time I'm going to add the liquid first into the flour mixture. And then just fold it. You don't want to overmix it, but you want to make sure there's no streaks of flour left. And so it should be a little, like, it shouldn't be doughy yet because we haven't added the oats in, but it should be thicker, but not completely.
And when you do it with a hand mixer, do you find that it goes faster, that you have to be really careful that you don't overmix it with a hand mixer?
You can use a hand mixer for this part, but I don't like to because then you can overmix it or it just goes flying everywhere. And that's not good because I'm very bad at cleaning. But so yeah, like that. And then 2 cups of oats.
So what kind of oats do you use?
You can use any type of oats, really. It doesn't really matter as long as they're oats. They work.
So I know we've done it before with gluten-free oats. We've done it with whole oats.
You can do steel cut.
These are cooked oats because it's what we generally have in the house.
Yeah, any kind of oats works, but I just use whatever we have in the house. So you just want to make sure that all of the oats are fully
Incorporated.
whatever, yeah, incorporated. And so you just keep folding over and over. I usually use my hands, but it takes a long time to get off. So
It's a good workout.
yes. Don't do this if you have long nails because it gets under.
Do you wash your hands before you use your hands?
Always, yes, of course.
Oh, good.
I'm very clean.
She's very clean. Even in quarantine, she's.
Shira, there's a question in the chat. How is the cookie sheet prepared?
Oh, just lined with parchment.
So we use a lot of parchment in our house. We buy it in bulk from Costco. We use it for baking, for cooking.
And then 1 cup raisins. Like I said, you can also use craisins or whatever type of dried, whatever, fruit.
Have you ever added chocolate chips?
No.
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 You're a purist. When
Yes.
It comes to oatmeal raisin.
Yes. Oh.
Okay. Hence the mess. There we go.
This is why I use my hands. But there's always a mess after I'm done cooking. So
That is true.
always. Except I'm never the one that cleans it up. So.
Also, always true.
You can always add more raisins if you want. You can always add less. You know, whatever you feel is right for you. Okay. So now that everything's about even and fully incorporated, you can set the oven 350 and then line. Wait. This usually makes how many cookies? A lot of cookies.
Enough to eat for several days to take to work. Do they freeze well, Shira?
Yes. Well, actually, I don't know. We always eat our cookies, but I think they freeze well. Okay, and then I've just lined 2 baking sheets with parchment paper. And I'm using this like scooper with a silicone bottom that you can press down on. So I'm taking about that much and I'm just pressing it out into the thing. So it looks like that. You can do less, you can do more, and then I just pat them down because they don't really spread out. So they're just easier to eat.
There's a question in the chat. Have you ever used an electric mixer?
Yes.
And how does that affect the texture?
Not really, no.
You just have to be careful.
You have to be careful that it doesn't fly everywhere with, and you don't overmix it. So, like that, you just want to line. It makes about 2 or 3 trays, which is a lot. So, yeah.
That's okay. Mommy's taking them to work tomorrow.
What?
Some. Mommy's taking some to work tomorrow. So we made these for your bar mitzvah, right?
I don't know.
This
I was
was
busy
part-
for my bar mitzvah.
This was part of the dessert you designed. I definitely know we made them for your brother's bar mitzvah.
Is
I
that
like this.
part of the spoon that you press on called a yarmulke?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It does look like one.
This is also very messy because it gets in your fingernails, but I don't know where I got this. My grandma got it for me, so you just have to ask her. I think it was for my bar mitzvah, this scooper thing, or for my
Probably.
birthday or something.
Do you ever just use your hands and make balls?
Yes,
Instead?
but then you have 2 dirty hands, and it's hard. And this, when you cook or when you bake, you always want to have 1 clean hand. That way,
You can
fix your hair, or I don't know, just hold the bowl or anything, and this really helps that. I think I'm gonna need 3 trays for this amount of cookies, but I'll probably just film 2 because it's one tray.
So there's a question again about the kinds of oats. Can you use instant oats or old fashioned or the quick cooking oats?
We've never used the instant.
We use quick oats because that's what we have in the house because we use it for breakfast and all that. But I guess you can use any kind of
You
oats
can use
want.
whole. I think the original recipe probably called for whole oats, but it's just not something we usually have in the house. We like quick oats. The kids eat a lot of oatmeal. Well, two of the kids eat a lot of oatmeal.
I don't eat oatmeal.
Okay, one of the kids eats
Sammy
a lot
eats
of
it with
oatmeal.
a lot of brown sugar, so that's not really oatmeal.
So that's what we keep in the house. What I like about this recipe is that we usually have all the ingredients in the house. So it's a quick thing we can throw together when back in the days when we used to have company over, or if we needed a dessert for Shabbos and didn't have a lot of time to prep. It's usually a big hit with 3 out of 4 of us.
Sam doesn't need anything. But...
So that's why it's one of our favorites.
And
You,
then
Do you wet your hands for this process?
well, when I use my hands to mix it, I'll wear gloves. But
Or do you wet your hands ever? No.
No.
Okay.
okay, so
you do occasionally eat the batter off when you're done,
yes, well,
obviously.
so bake these 350, 8 to 10 minutes. If you like them more crispy, you can do 10 minutes or
Soft and chewy.
soft and chewy. I like my cookies crispy, but my mom likes them warm and gooey. It's weird. But yeah, so that's easy. Where are you going?
All right.
Okay.
So now you're gonna put this in the oven, right?
Yes.
And now we're gonna make the main course. All those are cooking. So this is my baked ziti recipe. I've been making it for years. I found the recipe years ago, and I made it for Shavuot, and the kids loved it, and it became a staple in our house. We eat it a lot in the winter. It's great because I can put it in the freezer and take it out whenever. I thought overnight, and then we pop it in the oven. It's one of those really easy dinners, which is nice on a weeknight. So I already cooked my pasta. I did it last night. I don't even know what kind of noodles these are.
Whole wheat rotini?
Rotini. So I always like whole wheat noodles. My kids, not so much, but I feel that if you put enough sauce and cheese on anything, they don't really know that it's whole wheat and good for them. So I like that. So you can use really any kind of noodle that you have in the house. When I buy noodles, I always buy them in boxes of 2. So I baked both, I boiled both boxes last night, and I put them each in trays. So to make this super creamy, I like to use mascarpone cheese. I buy it at Trader Joe's. I've seen it at Mark's as well. So for 2 recipes, I use a whole thing of mascarpone. So I already made one. It's ready for us for dinner for tonight. So I have half a container of mascarpone cheese. So I'm going to put that in the bowl here. I like to leave it out for, I don't know, maybe a half an hour before I make this, so it's soft and not freezing cold and hard. That way it mixes better. I use Kirkland from Costco tomato sauce. I buy it in bulk because we make pizza and pasta, and it's just a really good sauce to have because it really is. The ingredients are just tomatoes, salt, and we always have it in the house. So I know if I want to make a pasta dish, it's always there. So I use 1.5 cans. So these are each 15 ounces. So today I'm adding it just to a bowl, but when I make it fresh, I'll mix it up in the still warm pan, or in the still warm pot that I boil my noodles in. That way the cheese incorporates even easier because it's warm. If you get clumps, it's really not a big deal because in the end you're putting it in the oven to bake, and so the cheese itself is going to melt. But I just kind of smash it down. I have made this without the mascarpone because I am lactose intolerant, as is my father, and so it's always good.
Oh my, but I choose not to be.
It's always good to make a dish that everybody can eat. So I have made it without the mascarpone. I will tell you, as somebody who used to be able to eat dairy, that it's much better with, just because it's so much creamier. I have never tried it with anything other than mascarpone. I'm sure you could. I just happen to be a fan of this. Okay. I love oregano. I think you can never have too much oregano. So I'm gonna add probably about a tablespoon and thyme. The original recipe calls for thyme. I don't use fresh, I always use dry. I've also never tried this with fresh oregano. Again, something I always have in my cabinet, which is what I like about a lot of the meals that I make on a weeknight. My dad doesn't like thyme, so when I make his, I don't put it in for him, but I like it, so I'm gonna add it for the rest of us. I use probably about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. One of the problems about writing these recipes down is that I have been making this recipe for so long that I don't really need to follow a recipe. And what I love about cooking versus baking is that you can taste as you go and add more. So you can always, right, it doesn't need to be precise, whereas baking I find is more of an exact science.
That's why I like it.
That's why Shira likes it. Garlic salt, I live and die for Trader Joe's garlic salt grinder. It's so good. I can pronounce all of the ingredients in it. There's no sugar. So I grind a little salt in this. You can use regular salt. I like kosher salt for cooking and baking. If you like things spicy, you can add red pepper flakes to this. I know that would be really good, but not everybody likes it so spicy. So once it's pretty mixed up, I'm just gonna pour it right over the noodles.
I've never seen you make this before, actually.
No,
No, I've never made it before.
it's so easy.
I'm always in my room, so I've never seen this.
And then I'm just gonna mix the sauce in with the noodles. If you like it a little more wet, you can add more sauce. You can add less sauce if you want it more crunchy, because you are gonna bake it. So, oh, Shira, can you grab me the cheeses in the fridge, please?
Yeah.
You can't have baked ziti without cheese on top. So you wanna make sure it's right on top of the cherries. They're in bowls. So you wanna make sure all the noodles are wet and have some sauce on them. I love these trays. I also buy these at Costco. This sounds like an advertisement for Costco.
You can reuse the trays too, but
You can reuse them. I don't always when I make something like this because it's a pain to kind of scrub the cheese off. Okay, so everything is super wet and ready to go. There's my mozzarella cheese, and I just sprinkle it on top, however much you like. If you like a lot of cheese, go for it. If you like very little, however you want.
no cheese at all.
No cheese at all.
Because if you're lactose or dairy or whatever.
Right. We happen to like a lot of cheese. I also use some
Parmesan.
Parmesan. Thank you, assistant. And I just sprinkle that right on as well. Shira is gonna grab.
Wait, assistant.
Shira is gonna grab the one that I already made, so I can show you what it looks like when it's done. So it's over there.
Okay.
So I bake this. Oh, all the cheese. Thank you. So I bake this covered with foil. I bake it on 350 for about 45 minutes. And then I take the foil off for the last 15. It kind of crunches up the top. It's not so hot. You can bring it without the pad.
Yeah, but the bottom is hot.
No, that's true. So this was in there for about 45 minutes and then probably about 10. You can see I didn't use a ton of cheese. My kids are fanatics, so they will add more, as they call it, sprinkled cheese. to the top, but it has like a good, nice crust around the edges. The girls like the edges. They like the crunch. My son likes the soft part in the middle.
So it all works out.
So it all works out. It's a great, easy dish that everybody likes. And like I said, it freezes really, really well. Thank you, Shira. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the green bean fries. I need the eggs that's in the pan in the oven. Okay, so green bean fries, I discovered this recipe a few years ago. Back in the day when we used to be allowed to have company over. It's just something different and a way to kind of zhuzh up your boring green beans. Most of the time when I make green beans for the kids, I just roast them with olive oil and Trader Joe's garlic salt. But tonight we're gonna do something a little more fun. So I have in here, this is whole wheat flour. Again, my kids don't really notice, but I always try to use whole wheat instead of white if I can. When I bake, I use half white, half whole wheat. When I do something like this, I just use whole wheat. So I'm gonna add to my whole wheat flour some onion powder. Again, it's baking, so I'll taste it later. And if I wanna add more, I can add more. One of my secrets is that a lot of recipes tell you to add the seasoning to the panko part, but I like to add it to the dry that comes first because it really sticks more to the ingredient, to whatever it is that you're making, than when you put it in the panko. The panko is their larger chunks, and when you put seasoning in, they kind of fall to the bottom, and I find that you lose all the flavor. So I like to put my flavoring right in the first step. This is cayenne pepper because it should have a little bit of a kick. And then I add just some regular pepper. And then again with my favorite Trader Joe garlic salt. Okay. So this we're just gonna mix up. Just kind of mix it around so you get all of the good seasonings in. All right. I already blanched. You already put the flour. You already put the salt. So I already blanched my green beans. So to blanch them, first I cut off all the tips, and then I threw them in boiling water for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I put them in ice water, and that stops the cooking process. I took them out of the ice water and I put them on a paper towel so that they would be dry. So for this recipe, we do dry, wet, dry. So we have the flour mix, we have eggs. So I have 2 eggs here, and then I have the panko. And I'm gonna give you another secret tip that my mother taught me. When you are baking something that you wanna taste fried, you add a little bit of oil to it, and it kind of fries up a little bit in the oven. So I add probably about a teaspoon to 2 eggs, and then you just want to mix it really well. Okay.
This you also want to have one hand clean.
You want to have one dry hand and one wet hand. Otherwise it gets stuck. Okay, so and I have my, again, parchment lined tray. Luckily, we have lots of these trays in the house. Okay, so it's one of these patchki recipes, but to kind of make it go a little faster, I do a handful at a time. So I put the green beans in the flour. It's probably better if they're a little wet, they'll stick. The flour will stick a little bit better. These have been sitting out for a few minutes. Okay, so this is now my dry hand. This is gonna be my wet hand. So I take these green beans with the good flour on them, and I throw them in the egg mixture, and then I'm gonna, again, zhuzh them around in here. Taking my wet hand, I'm gonna throw them in the panko. One at a time, otherwise, if you toss them like this, you'll get all the egg, and then it's just a mess in the panko. Okay. I like to shake it up a little.
Want another fork?
No, I like to use my hands when I cook. I always wash them ahead of time. And then you're just gonna put them on the tray. These are best baked a little bit higher. So I bake them at about 425, and they really only need about 10-15 minutes. So when we want something a little different, this is a fun recipe. They do have a little bit of a kick to them, depending on how much cayenne we use. I think they're delicious. My kids like them. Sometimes we use ranch dressing as a dip. I've made like a garlic mayo before that was also really good. We're having a guest walkthrough.
Get away.
Hi, Jordan.
That's for the church.
And that's our green bean fries. So we're gonna bake these for about 425 for about 15 minutes. I can do more, but so I will tell you, this is what they look like when they come out. They're a little bit brown. You want them just a little. You have to be really careful because the panko, thank you. The panko will burn if you leave it in there too long. But I had twice as many when I made these originally today. So that's our green bean fries and our ziti. Shira, how are the cookies? All right, we're ready to reveal our first batch of cookies.
Burning.
So she grabbed the wrong oven mitt.
No, that one's even worse.
All right. So this is not a typical night's dinner in our house. We don't usually do dessert unless it's on a weekend.
Woo.
We'll make an exception tonight for you guys. And here are the beautiful cookies. So Shira baked these for about 8 minutes so that they're the way I like them. And you can tell they're not brown. They're not too dark underneath. They're a little bit soft, kind of bend them up. You want to let them sit for what, 5-10 minutes so they cool off.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll put them, we'll use a cooling rack to take them off just so that they cool also from the underside. They will continue to cook if you leave them on a hot tray like this. So we're usually pretty good about, once we bake things, taking them off the trays and putting them on a cooling rack so that they completely cool off.
No, they just came out of the oven.
They're a little hot still.
Have you ever made the frozen green beans? Have you ever made the green beans with frozen green beans?
I have not. I don't buy frozen vegetables other than peas and corn. I took the kids out for dinner once, and Shira ordered a salad with vegetables on it, and it came and it tasted funny to her, and we realized it was because the vegetables had all been frozen and then recooked. And my kids have never really had frozen vegetables. That's one of my things, is that I do hit the grocery store probably once or twice a week to buy fresh produce, or at least I used to. I like to buy a lot of fresh produce instead of getting it from the freezer. That's the long answer.
Gee whiz, did you ever use an air fryer for those? I bet that would be superb.
I'm sure it would. I don't have an air fryer, so I've never used one. I know the kids have one at their dad's house, but I don't have an air fryer. I don't fry a whole lot, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. The giant spatula
I also got from Grandma.
for your bar mitzvah.
I don't know.
What other questions does anybody have?
We're not very excited.
I had another question. Does Shira have any tattoos?
No, she's not allowed.
Okay,
Live
good.
at your house, Uncle Murray, when she comes home with one.
I just might not come to.
Okay, do we have any other questions here?
Or we're gonna make more. I'm gonna eat one.
And then I just reuse the parchment paper because there's really
Okay.
no reason why.
All right. Well, we want to thank you very much for a lovely presentation. You may think this was all about cooking, but actually, all the people looking in are amateur psychologists, and we wanted to see how if mother and daughter were getting along after all these weeks of being together. And we found out that you guys are doing pretty good. So we're very proud of you. Not only are you good cooks, but you're good people, and that's really nice.
Thank you, Uncle Murray.
You're welcome. So I guess that is about it. So next week we have Rachel doing her cooking with whatever. What is she cooking with? Yeast, that's it, yeast. And she's going to do some pizza and a delicious babka, and of course the kivli. Now, and it's going to be a real experience, and I wouldn't want to miss it. Just to mention, in 2 weeks we have no class. It's the fast of Tammuz. So I want everybody to study up on that. We're going to have a little quiz on why we fast on the at that time. I think it's the 17th of Tammuz. All right, so that's about it. Chad, do you have anything else?
There is one question in the chat for you, Murray. If you're going to air fry it, how long do you think you would do it for?
You cut it about in half the time. I'd think it'd be like trial and error, you know, since I've never done it, but it does it a lot quicker. And it's a lot more fulfilling, I can tell you. You feel great afterwards. Okay.
That's no more questions.
No more questions. Oh, we have a thank you from Ruth Dobris. It's nice to have you here. I hope you're doing okay and feeling all right. And we missed you for a couple days there. Okay.
Thank you. It's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye. Don't forget
Very
the recipes are on the chat or in the email. All right. Take care.